Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Recently, headlines have been made by parents pushing back against the tyranny imposed upon students by educators of our secular institutions. Kids are being forced to embrace radical ideologies and alternatively punished for expressing themselves on social media platforms. The schoolhouse and the schoolyard are fraught with political landmines. So much so, the United States Supreme Court heard arguments this week in what could be a landmark student free speech case. Jeff, you've got a couple of kids in school. What part of this classroom circus has you riled up as a parent and as a commentator?
You know, it was weird. I read up on it, and I was like, this is like the weirdest case to go before the Supreme Court. I get why it is. I understand, but I was like, this is just kind of weird. I mean, first off, where are the parents where their kids are tweeting or Snapchatting this stuff? Snapchat is the devil, I will tell you right now. I'm okay with other social media, but Snapchat, it can be deleted at any time. So to me, I'm like, what's going on here? Jeff,
let me interrupt you for a second. Can you backtrack and tell our viewers a little bit about this case? It's, what's happening in this case.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I read up on this case, and apparently what happened is this 14 or 15-year-old girl was cut from the cheerleading team because for whatever reason, and then they kicked her off the entire team, the JV team, because she went on Snapchat and basically threw a tantrum about the issue, said some things that she probably shouldn't have said about the coach. She was dropping F-bombs all over the place, and it was a mess. And so in retaliation, I suppose, they kicked her off the entire team. So the Supreme Court is judging whether or not that action was warranted. Now, like I've said before, Snapchat is the devil. Don't let your kids use it. Other social media is probably okay, but Snapchat, when you record a message on Snapchat, it's not actually recorded. It only stays there for 24 hours, then it disappears. So people can say all kinds of stuff. But in this kid's case, one of her friends had recorded it on her screen and then showed it to the coach. They probably didn't like each other all that much. But what's interesting, though, is that in adjudicating this case, the justices are determining whether or not her speech was disruptive. Because if you can show that it's disruptive, then you can have the case for taking punitive action. But in this case, I'm not seeing that it was definitely wrong, but I'm not seeing that it was disruptive to the point to where she should have been retaliated against that way.
Well, her parents should have stepped in and smacked her around and found a bar of ivory soap to stuff in her pie hole. But, on the other hand, it's still freedom of speech. And I think we have come really close too many times to chip away at this right that we have in this country. And, as distasteful as it is, but, I kind of think it's okay that the Supreme Court went the way they did, asking questions and how they came about, it's not some precedented breaking, news or anything, but it's going to keep happening. It's going to be the next guy and the next guy and the next kid. And you say something wrong about, I don't want to study that at this school and my professor's an idiot. My God, you're not going to be allowed to speak ever again. They're going to lock you up. So I think where we're going with this is dangerous. And I think that this gives me a little bit of hope that, even though we don't like mean girls, we don't like the mean girls, but she was just venting. It was over. Venting, over, done.
Yeah, I think this is a more complicated case than one would think, though. I mean, what if somebody takes to Snapchat or whatever and puts all the answers to the big math exam? What if somebody keeps going on Facebook urging another cheerleader to commit suicide? I mean, there's a lot of nuance in this case, don't you think, Andrew?
Yeah, but I'd like to make one point, though. I think when Jeff says that Snapchat is the devil, I think TikTok is really the devil of all the social media outlets. But, this whole case, it frightens me as a father. I have twins. They're only 3 years old in a couple of months, And I'm worried that when they go to school, they have to endure all of this. They have to endure the social media. They're going to be pressured to do it. They're going to have to deal with these indoctrination centers. They're going to have to deal with these leftist professors. They're going to deal with laws and regulations and all that stuff. And I really think that when you read up these cases happening in these government schools, it really makes the case for homeschooling. Homeschooling, you don't have to deal with so much of this because parents have a one-on-one education, or they can outsource to a tutor when it comes to the more complicated subject. But overall, these government-run schools, these government indoctrination centers, whatever we want to call them, they're terrifying places. I just hope my kids stay 3 years old and never grow up, or maybe I'll change my mind soon. But overall, government schools they're cesspools these days.
All right, Tim.
Well, you know what I want? I want the Supreme Court to establish some sort of bright line on this, because, the Supreme Court is in the business of settling issues that cannot be settled anywhere else. And they seem to be reluctant to do that. They didn't do it with the election. They seem to be hesitant with settling gun disputes. They seem to be walking on eggshells. So the important thing is to establish some sort of benchmark, some sort of clear line on an issue like this, which is very difficult. There's good arguments to be made on both sides. So let's see if we get some wisdom out of the Supreme Court, which I'm not sure that any of us have seen a whole lot of in recent weeks or months.
We really hold up to the Supreme Court, or the Americans really hold up to the Supreme Court as such a crucial body. It's 9 people. Why should 9 people, dictate the law of the land? I never understood that as something.
Well, they're not to dictate it; they're to interpret it. They have to interpret it, and that's why they get paid the big bucks and have the cushy job, because they're the ones that have to decide what others can't decide. So we can debate it, but they have to, I just want them to make a decision with some teeth so that it doesn't have a limited application. And cases like this keep revolving back to the Supreme Court. Again, this is more about the court than the issue, but I think maybe I'm not speaking for all of us, but I personally have been somewhat disappointed in the Supreme Court.
No, I actually think that's a really good point. I agree. I mean, the Supreme Court is a more lofty institution. So in a case such as this, whatever ruling they make, they need to make sure that it's not such an ambiguous ruling that it just ends up back there again. Like you said, Tim, they need to say, okay, this is the line, this is where you don't cross, or these are the rules, or whatever, or however that works. They do need to make it a more definitive decision. Otherwise, we're just going to keep hearing about this over and over and over again.
Once all this shakes out, one has to wonder if this means parents will begin a mass exodus, like Andrew said, to homeschool their children. What began for many as the result of COVID restrictions might just turn out to be the answer for conservative parents who don't want their children either propagandized or punished by the public schools. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 a year. This has been a production of libertynationnews.com. Conservative news where truth matters.